much for coming to tonight's talk. My name is Shi Chen, and I will be talking about script. We can use our Java skills to automate the tasks using G Suite apps such as email, Google Sheets, Google, etc. So first, in my company, I work as a specialist at the Button. We are so this is on the second floor, actually. That's me on the far right side. And for those of you that may have tried name, here's without the T, so it's sure. And so at Touch, on one hand, we use we use them in our personal life too. And on the other hand, we also use Node.js for our infrastructure and automation tool. So my last talk at jSTL was actually on building integration pipeline. So those two, we use that daily at our work. So when Google App Scripts allows me JavaScript to augment G Suite apps and jumped right into it. And it gave me a lot of ideas on how to automate manual tasks. So today I want to share demos on what script can do. And the first demo we're going to dive into is Google's own tutorial on I'm just going to open this doc. This one is already loaded with the add-on, so I can just start this add-on, and it pops this little window here. So what this does is that it can translate the selected text and insert it right back into the Google Doc. So what I can do is if I just highlight this and select it, and then I choose the source language to be auto-detected, and I choose a destination language, such as Japanese. Then if I hit this button, then it's translated here. And then if you hit the insert button, it actually replaces this at the Google Doc. So, instead of you tabbing, Google Translate in a different window, you can have it right here for you. And then if we try this again, just source language auto-detect, and then let's translate it back to English. Then it gives us the string back. So it's just convenient augmentations like this that Google Apps enables us to do. So let's take a look at some of the core API calls behind this add-on. This is a little bit blurry when it blows up, but it's just 3 lines of code. So basically, I made my own function, but then I'm just calling the Google Translate API, which is called language app.translate. It takes 3 arguments. It asks you for your text string. It asks you what this original language is, and then it asks you what your destination language is. So you can even leave the origin language blank, and then it will do the auto-detect. So it really is as simple as this. You just feed the 3 arguments, and then you call this API. It returns you the text, the translated text. But then where did this text come from, right? So this text comes from selected text was highlighted by my cursor. And then how I got that is through the Google Docs API. So I've redacted the code a little bit, but then the gist of that is you call the document app API, and then you call that dot get active documents to get the currently opened Google document, which is the one that I was just working on. And then you call dot get selection. So that turns you of your cursor highlighted. And then here, it's pretty simple JavaScript. I just created an array, and then I just iterate through all the highlighted elements. And then I filter it a little bit because if I highlight the elements pictures or videos. I don't need that. I only want strings. So I filter those out, and then I just push those strings back to this array, and then join this array by new lines into a, and then feed that. So pretty straightforward. And then lastly, this add-on window, you can actually customize how you want it to look. So it's just plain HTML and CSS. So again, this is redacted code here, but then if you don't, so I was using the default Google CSS, but you can change up the looks of it however you want. And then I'm not a front-end expert, but then the HTML here is just this is the selection text, and then for the input buttons, I chose the style to be radial, so then this is the radial buttons here. It's very flexible. You can just customize it however to your needs. So how come, so where does the HTML file and the JavaScript code live? Well, they actually, and how come they have access to the API and then the Google Doc resource? Well, it's because they are actually hosted as a project on the AppScript platform. So to start, that is very simple. If you just go to your Google Doc and go to the Tools tab, and then click on the Script Editor button, then it automatically creates a Google Apps Script project that's associated with this doc. So basically, it has access to this doc. And then basically in that project, then you can see that's where the JavaScript file and then the HTML file is hosted, which directly powers that add-on. And then after you create the project, at script.google.com, that will show you all of your AppScript project there. So all the things you need, simple and straightforward. Is implementing a habit tracking calculation in Google Sheets. So the credit of this goes to Harold Kim, who wrote this way back in 2016. There is a link to his original Medium article at the end of the presentation if you're interested in that. But let's open that sheet. So, just a spreadsheet, very simple, right? And then this one is just the sheet that basically has all 350, 65 days. And then if I fast forward to today, then what I use it for is basically, I just have entries to my habits. So for example, I exercised on 218, and then I fell off the track, and then I started exercising again on 224. So then so I basically have calculations that helps me to keep track of my streaks. So right now I'm on a 3-day streak. So that's basically my current streak, and then that's also the longest one I've ever had. So my max streak for exercise is just 3. But then for journaling, let's say if I actually journaled from 218 to 221, and then fell off the track, and then started again 2 days later, then my max streak is 4, and then my current streak is only 2. So had I actually kept journaling on that day, then after I enter that, after recalculation, then it just updates it, and then now it displays as 5. Too fancy, right? But then the good thing about what powers this is that I'm actually calling my own functions here, just as I'm calling the built-in functions here. So this custom function is powered by AppScript. So again, all that I have to do is Tools tab, click on the script editor, it opens and creates the project for me. And then in that project, I can create my own function. And then this function is really plain and simple. I'm not even calling any AppScript API calls. I'm just using JavaScript. But instead of maybe trying to calculate that in that little tab, calculations here in the project, and then call that functions from the script. So then I can use that in any cells. And then it's just really convenient. So if you ever find the built-in functions to be lacking, now you have the means to create your own functions. And if you, like me, hate editing that little UIs, no more of that. Take the power back to your own hands. All right. So that's that demo. And then the third demo is, the last demo is what I'm most proud of because I actually use it for automating QA testing management tasks at work. So the scope of this problem is bigger than the previous two examples. I'd like to start with some background information about the challenges of QA. So yeah, hashtag QA life. So yeah, so as funny as this joke is, spot on in terms of how rigorous QA testing needs to be to catch all the problems. And in video game development, the scenario is even further. So for example, with different control schemes. So is I bar to order all sorts of not once, but I need to do it 3 times. I need to order it 1 time with gamepad, and I need to order with touch screens. And so tripled. And then what's more about it, like if I don't only have 1 game, I have 6. And if I don't only ship to 1 distribution platform, I try to ship as many platforms as I can. And I can't just ship it 1 version of the game and call it a day. I have to continually support it and come up with updates for new features or bug fixes, which then lead to more bug fixes. All of this combinatorial, the QA needs to scale really fast. I need to run lots of tests, right? And then with running QA tasks, tasks, when you have so many of them, it's just all about getting the right information into the hands of right people. So if I have a team of testers, some of them are testing on, let's say, a iOS, and then some of them are testing on Android. I don't want to give them the same instructions. I want to actually instructions to the platform they are testing on. No more information. They're just normal, right? So I basically need a flexible and scalable testing infrastructure. This is an illustration of what that infrastructure looks like. So let's say I'm scheduling a release, a pool of tests that needs to be run. Let's say just it's test A, B, and C. And then test A is shared between platforms. So it needs to be run on both Android and iOS. And B is Android specific, C is iOS specific. Then what I need to do is I basically source the test from the same pool, but then create 2 separate campaigns. And then I write instructions on how to perform the test, along with questionnaires for the testers to leave feedbacks. And then I compose them into a Google form, right? I compose 2 separate forms. And then I just use email to email them out to the testers. So they perform the test, and then they submit the feedbacks, which then all those test results are aggregated in the Google Sheet. So let's just take a closer look at each step. So for the test pool, it can be a simple JSON object. It just needs to have some metadata, such as maybe the version of the software we're testing, and then what platform it is on, and then it can just have an array of test cases in there, and each test cases can have a title, a description, the steps to perform, and then which platform this. And I can just have an array of test cases in there. And then I just need another object to describe the testers. So all I need to know is just the contact information of the tester and then what platforms they are capable of testing on. So I just need these two objects. And then I sort my test cases from that test basically get for each platform. So maybe for iOS, I need to run 7 tests. And for Android, I only need to run 5 tests. And some tests might be shared, some tests might be unique to each platform. But then they can share some of the metadata. They can share some of the metadata because maybe they're all the same version. And then they can maybe share the same description or different descriptions, right? And then the actual forms questions then contains the test cases. So the test case can just say what the test summary is about, maybe provide some supplemental URL links here, and then just a simple questionnaire for the tester to respond. Oh, did this test case pass? And I can add the text box there too if they want to give more detailed text description of what happened while they're performing the test. And then create those and I get the URL of the forms and just email them out to the testers. They perform the test, submit the results, and then the data is aggregated in the spreadsheet, right? So the thing is that if I need to manually all the spreadsheets, the forms, manually email them out, I would go crazy. Or this process is just very tedious and is just not scalable. So with app scripts, I basically have the power to call all those different apps APIs, and then I can chain them together and then to automate all of this process. So eventually I'll create to a command line app, and then I can just run that app, and then it will generate all of this forms for me. So let's take a look at that. So all I need to do, so first, this is the project. So let's say now, actually, I'm coming up with a new release, and then I'm going to change some information about it. So instead of version 1.4.36, I'm going to say, okay, this is now version 2.0. Just change the metadata information here, and then I'll say, instead of running it just on iOS, Android, Windows tester. So I'm going to add a Windows platform in there, and then let's just say like they are running the same. They're running the same test for regression. So I'm not going to change any of the test cases here. But essentially, I'm just editing this JSON object, save it, and then I can run my app, and then it's going to take some time to talk to all the APIs and then to generate the forms. So while we're waiting on that, let's take a look at the API. So this is just of the forms API, but again, it's just straightforward. If you want to create a form, you just call the forms app API, and then you can do forms app create, give it the title, new form, and then if I need to add a checkbox question, I can say form.add checkbox item. And then I can chain that, I get the handle of that, and then I can say, okay, set this question's title to the actual question, and then provide some choices. I can provide all these additional choices here. And then that basically adds this checkbox question to the form. And then if I need to add multiple choice questions, it's also very similar. Just add the multiple choice items, set the title, add the choices there. So this is basically the form. Use. So my code basically is a lot longer than that, but then again, it's just doing that thing, right? It's just what it does is just it parses the test pool JSON that I feed into in the first place. So I grab the metadata, and then I created the form with that title. And then I grabbed maybe the description from the metadata and then set the description with the forms there. And then I add all my multiple choice or yes and no questions there or my text box in there. So to compose, in the end, I have this form, right? And then now I need to create a sheet, a Google Sheet to channel, set that as the destination for all my forms results. So I just create the sheet, again, simply by calling the API spreadsheet app.create. I can use the same title as the form, just append with dash response, sets that as the title. And then I just need to associate this sheet as the output destination. I just need to call form.setDestination, set the type to be spreadsheet, and then grab the sheet's handle and feed it into this function, and then this associates the two of them. And then in the end, I need to send the email, right? So again, from the form, if I need to get an email, I just call this API to get the email, to get the URL that I need to email out. And then I iterate through my tester into here, grab the tester's emails, and then add the subject as, hey, test for you, this is the name of the test. And then this is the URL, that's the body of the email. So by this point, we should have finished running it now. So yeah, so this has finished. So let's take a look at what it generated. So if I go to my Google Drive, so you can see all my forms now appear in here with the newly updated metadata. Also, we added the Windows form there, so now the Windows form is also in here. So, and I also got the spreadsheet here, and then so if I open this up, I can see that it actually has 3 responses here for the 3 forms. So all of these 3 forms. So normally, by default, when you create a form through the UI, it creates a separate spreadsheet for itself. And then if you need to aggregate it, then you need to maybe manually copy and paste it. But then if you use the set destination API call, then you can aggregate them all under the same spreadsheet. And of course, because we have, so even now this is 3 forms, but again, because we have access to all of this, so I can condense this even further. Let's say, if I have another script running in this sheet, that then maybe it monitors, the inputs from this 3 separate sheets and then aggregate them into the 4th sheet. Then now I can have all of the test data shown on one sheet automatically. So that's the sheet, and then so let's take a look at the generated form. So, oh yeah, not from here actually. So let me show you. The email first. So we created the form. We need to email those out, right? So if I go to my sandbox, so now I see that this was just emailed out 7/27, and then basically the URL of each form itself is emailed out to the corresponding tester that has the in the tester object. And then when I open it, it actually opens the form that they're going to see. So again, this has the correct metadata information there as we have just edited. That was the title, and then that was the version number that we just updated. So basically, simplifies my workflow. So now I don't need to manually bother with sending emails out Google spreadsheets. And then that makes this whole flow a lot less painful. And then I can run my tests more often, and then I can scale it. Because as we just, the source of it is just 2 JSON objects. If I need to add more test cases, I add more test cases to this array. If I needed to add more testers, I add more testers to this array. And then I run the app again, and then it will generate the new forms. It will email them out. That's the 3rd demo. So I hope by this point I hope by this point that I have, sorry, let me just flip to the right page. Yeah. Yeah. So I hope by this point I pick up your interest and giving you some ideas on what you can do with app scripts. And then now let's talk about how we can actually speed up the development process. So first off, offline editing is enabled, which is great. Internet connections, we want that. And then because now I have a local copy of the code, then we can actually check that into repositories with the version controls, and then we can also utilize like VS Code. So how do we get offline editing? Well, Google actually made it really simple. Google made this npm package called a clasp, and it really just like simplifies the offline project editing experience. So if you want to clone a existing app, you go to that project, you go to its data, and find the script ID. And then you grab that ID, and then you install your clasp npm, and then you run clasp login first, authenticate yourself, so prove who you are. You do that through Google OAuth, and then you just run clasp clone with your script ID, and then that will basically copy the files, basically the JavaScript in your project to your local machines. And then from there, then you can, and then once you're ready to push that into the back to the project, you just run clasp push, the cloud copy, right? And also, if you are collaborating with somebody else, you're not sure, oh, am I having the latest copy from the cloud? Then you can just run clasp pull, so it will pull the cloud copy to your local machine. And then lastly, Google really did a solid one for us. I think they added this function in the past few months. But you can now do clasp run. You can actually run your projects, the functions in your projects from the command line. So this is huge because, so just like what I did with my QA automation app, I can basically run that directly from my command line. So I don't have to open a browser, go to the script, wait for it to execute. I actually execute it from my command line. So this makes testing and just automation is a lot simpler. I couldn't be more thankful of this because when I initially looked into this last year, they didn't have that function. So I actually have to write those codes myself. But then now all of this are bundled as part of the clasp npm package. And it's just really, really seamless to use. So again, to speed up the development process, since we have the offline copy of the code, we can utilize VS Code. We can even utilize script support. So all we need to do is to install the types of Google App Scripts. And then if we change the file from JS to TS, then when we mouse over any of the function calls, the API calls in there, then we'll actually have the type support in there. So you're building documentations right at the IDE. That makes it a lot easier easier and less error prone when you're developing it. And then when you are ready, when you're done editing it, then you can just do clasp push -- watch. This way, then it actually it will push. So even though you're editing a TX file, it will push the compiled JavaScript file to your project in AppScript in the cloud. So you can see that the end result, the push the JavaScript file is already compiled. It's not TypeScript. So so you get TypeScript support. And that's it. That really is it. It's just this thing is super simple, really easy to use, and you can do offline editing, leveraging that with your VS Code, with your TypeScript support. The things you can do is just a lot of things you can do. Yeah. So now I'm opening up for questions. Yeah, I mean, the API call itself is very, very simple, and then yeah, all of this is free, and then Google does a really good job of showing the tutorials and the API references. So we can actually take a look at that. So, for example, if I search AppScript Forms API. So this is the example code that we just saw, and then so they have all the forms API. So this one is like you can do like input validations. You get like the metadata about the forms, and then all of the and then the Forms app was the API we used to create the forms and create different forms in there. So all of this are documented and just. Oh yeah, yeah. So you can. So there is so for so a main this is actually authentication. So if you need to run from a command line, basically outside of the browser, and these. But then if you are just doing simple, like add-ons or like functions in your G Suite apps, then ones are just like, you don't need to pay anything for it, and then consumer grade, and then, but then, if you do have G Suite subscription, the business tier subscription, then you can basically issue authentication tokens that then can be used for command line, automate a lot of stuff. So yes and no. Yeah. Any other questions?
So in your Google Docs example, show the translate
Mm-hmm.
the code that you wrote for this.
Mm-hmm.
I think I just misinterpreted it. It sounded like is that code tied to this doc, or can that code be reused for other docs?
You can reuse it. Yeah. So basically, the code is so this project. So this script basically has a script ID. And then basically, if you want to use this script, in your other projects, then as long as you have the handle to the script ID, and also you are the owner of this script, then you can basically use it elsewhere. There is also ways that you can actually use, but then that's that application process. So that setup is more involved. Yeah, so there are different ways that you can open up your scripts for others to use. So you can say you can publish this as a web app. So that means you can actually make this and then the forms functions they can call functions from those URL. So then like one use case of that is let's say you have for for this spreadsheet, if I want to update it by doing HTTP calls, then I can have a script spawned from this object, from this project, from this sheet. But then I publish that project as a web, and then I can post to that URL, which calls the functions in the project, and then use as a web app, and then deploy as API executables. That's actually the ones that I used for my automation app. Deploy as docs add-on. So the add-ons that you see in here, so Google basically has their own like add-on stores, right? So all of these add-ons are basically powered by AppScript's project. I don't know if anybody's making a profit from this, but yeah, you can basically bundle your scripts as an add.
Answer my next question about the ecosystem. So that's very cool. So those are all third party.
Yeah, those are all third party. Like.
Are there any paid ones that you've come across? Or are they all free?
I have not. I don't know. I think like Google, the same thing with their Chrome like add-ons. I think they try to push this to be a kind of like a marketplace ecosystem, but then it just didn't really go anywhere. Yeah. No. Any? Yeah. Yeah, I think so. Eventually, so basically, if you want to open your project for other people to use, so first example, like actually, if you are a business like G subscribers, you make the project open. Groups. But then if you are talking about opening that up to just like anybody. I think it will be billed per calls at the API because your project is hosted on Google's cloud. So so that way, but basically with that setup, then you can open your project to other people to use. Yeah. Mm-hmm. All right, I think that's all the questions we have then. All right. Thank you guys very much for coming. If you want to learn this, you can just go to their landing page, AppScript. They really have really highly recommend. And then again, the habit tracker, this was made by someone back in 2015. You want to check it out, this link here. And then thanks you worked on this project. And lastly, if you want to